Hi, how are we doing? Welcome to this. This is the second of 4 things you need to be doing this week to get yourself an A star. I'm going to jump right into it. This one is called metacognition. It's about really knowing whether you are really learning at your most effective and how you're going to know that. Now, to do this, we really need banks of questions. We need lots, preferably MCQs, preferably real exam questions, but we're going to need lots. So if you've got a comment, if you've got something that you like using, some resource that you like using, then leave that in the main comments to the video so that other people can get the benefit of what you found to work really, really well. So this is the number 2. This is the thing that you need to be doing right now, tonight. And this is an actionable thing. Hopefully you tuned in yesterday and you found the first one and you went through and you checked what you need to be working on. Well, this is like, well, we know what we need to work on. How do we know if the work we're doing is actually working out? This is metacognition, and it basically means this. It means do what's working, check it's working, check it's working, and if it's not working, then stop doing it, okay? And change what you need to do. And to do that, you really need to be able to like check whether you need to do something about it, and then check whether it's worked or not. And I suggest the way to do that is really like banks of questions, preferably like multiple choice questions. Loads of multiple choice questions might be really, really good. So if you've got ideas of where you can find loads of multiple choice questions or loads of past papers, then hit that down in the main comments to this video. If you've got any questions, by the way, then I have my whiteboard and my pen. So if you've got questions, then I can, about anything really, then I can have a little go at those. But I'll do that towards the end, so stay tuned for that. But really, this is, me just sending you a message, something you can do right now, do tonight, to ensure you're going to get that A star. And it's not just for physics, okay? This will work for all your different exams, all your 3 A levels. So I want you to do this tonight, spend about an hour on each A level. I want you to really go ahead and do, this one is about A level, my dude. And this is about making sure that you can check what's working and make sure you go over that, right? So remember, do what's working, and if it's not working, stop it and change it. Okay, so firstly, dig out your old mock exams, right? Here's what I want you to do tonight. Dig out your old mock exams, go through those, ask yourself between those mock exams, and if you don't have mock exams, use unit tests. Did you improve? Did your grade improve? And basically, well, if it didn't improve, then you need to do a different type of revision for this real thing now. Remind yourselves which areas you worked on between those 2 mock exams and how did you work on it? Did it work? It basically is the question. Did the way you revised in between mock 1 and mock 2, did that improve your grades? If it did, brilliant, do more of that. If it didn't, change it. Now, remember, in doing this and checking through and think about this, you're actually spending the time revising because you're going through old past paper questions, you're going through your own mock exams, hopefully they've got your own feedback on them. So don't feel like this is separate from the act of revising, this thinking about revising, which I'm talking about, this metacognition, which is this tip number 2 of these 4 things you need to do this week to get yourself the A star. Okay. A student asked yesterday, should I just memorize the answers to the past paper questions? Well, this is why we bother to do the past paper questions. It's not to memorize the answers to those questions, but it's to learn the way in which we solve the problems in the exam papers. So it's not just about knowing the answers, but how to solve the problems. And also practice makes perfect, right? So Lewis from A-Level Physics Online, one of his mantras, one of the things he says is the idea is you don't practice the questions until you can get them right. You practice questions until you can't get them wrong. So spend a bit of time. Isaac Physics is a great example of that. That's what the idea of that is. Loads and loads and loads of maths-based questions that you just do and do and do until you can't get that type of question wrong. Okay, now thinking about this, doing this metacognition, this is the second tip of 4, the things you need to be doing right now, thinking about and it really helps you understand the physics at a deeper level because you have to think, why am I not getting this thing? What is it about this thing that I'm not getting? So really, really go for it. Now, there's another thing I've noticed, because a lot of people have asked about the difference between old specification papers and new specification papers, and there's something really useful about old specification papers, which is that the questions are way more structured, right? They're more structured in the old specification papers. So for example, a question we noticed today, it was a question about luminosity. And in the new spec, they might just say, here's a peak wavelength and here's a radius, and calculate the luminosity of the star. Now, actually, that is like loads of different steps. And in the old spec, it would have been 3 questions. It would have been, first of all, calculate the temperature of the star from Vines law. Then it would have been calculate the surface area of the star. Then it would be use Boltzmann law to get the luminosity. All right. So what I'm saying to you is a really useful thing. All those past paper questions are like short versions, broken down versions of new specification papers. So go through those and use those. Right. In the comments, let's make this like a big directory of all the things that you can go, all the banks of questions that you can use to do this idea that I'm telling you to do, to change your way of revising, to like check if you need to do something, work on it, revise it, however you find that best, even just reading and thinking about it, getting your thoughts in order about that topic, then check whether or not it's helped. So check, revise, check, make that your policy this week and into the next things. Check you can do something. If you can, move on to something different. Check it, revise it, check it. If you didn't do well in the first one, revise it, then check that that's actually changed. Very, very important. So some ideas of places you can go for banks of questions, maybe physics and maths tutor, maybe Bitesize for GCSE, Primrose, Kitten, textbooks and revision. There's loads of questions in those, use those. Revision guides, your teachers themselves will be able to get you back banks of questions. All the exam boards do a kind of exampro or a bank of test questions online that you can look at, all the past papers online. Things like Doddle, Sam Learning, or Kerboodle, maybe your school has. Isaac Physics, if you don't have the book, then you can still get the questions online. Okay, so kahoots, but any other ideas on that? There's loads of ideas there, but go ahead and leave them in the comment. Well, I'll have a little look at the spec, but just before I do a little look at the chat, sorry, just before I do and answer any questions in the chat. This is tip number 2, okay, which is metacognition. I think is the most important skill if you're going to get good at learning stuff, is knowing how to learn and knowing like what works for you for different things. So metacognition is really, really important. So I'm asking you to make sure you're doing only what is working, and if it's not working, then stop doing it, okay? Do something different. And the thing I want you to do right now to do this is I want you to dig out any old unit tests that you've got, any old mock exams you've got. Hopefully, I want you to find the 2 sets of mock exams your school has probably done with you. If they've only done one, that's fine, maybe last year's paper or something like that. And I want you to think about the way in which you revised in between those 2 mock exams. And I want you to ask yourself really honestly, did it work? Did it improve your grade? And if it did work, carry on revising that. If it didn't, then find a new way of working. And remember, the best method of working is always check whether you know something, revise it somehow, and then check whether you can now do those questions. All right, I hope that helps. I'll sum that up again just at the end, but I'll have a look into the chat because there were a couple of questions there. Hopefully you guys are still around. Jonathan, is there a spider on that chair on your left? Amir, you're a big meanie. Not doing GCSEs, but thank you for your work. I recommend you to my sister and she's doing great. That's great news. I'm lovely to hear that, Osman. Right, good man. We had our Unit 3 Excel new syllabus exam today. They gave electron diffraction experiment in the measurement of the radius of a ring. Okay, that's really useful. Thank you very much. So I guess that was going to de Broglie wavelength, which is h over p, so Planck's constant over the momentum. Thanks very much for that. That's a tip. So revise in that. It will be different questions on the real thing. If you're doing Excel, then looking at the international spec questions are useful because they are quite similar. I think they're written by similar people. They've got quite similar wording, I find. It might be a good, useful bank of resources for you. And Maths Made Easy, as Mayers has suggested, Maths Made Easy is a good way to find lots of multiple choice questions and bank of questions there. Help me with this simple harmonic oscillator. 4 meters per second through the equilibrium position. What's the speed of the oscillator when the displacement is half the amplitude? So you've got to think about it as a sine curve then. Sorry, what was it? 4 meters per second through the equilibrium position. What is the speed of the oscillator when the displacement is half the amplitude? So, let's just draw this out quickly for me in my head. I'm actually doing this upside down on the thing for some reason. Okay, so the speed time graph for an oscillator looks like this. Well, it could be a speed position graph if you like, V and X. So you've been told that at this point, rather this point here, that the speed is 4 meters per second. So that value is 4. So you can think about it as when it's halfway along that, what point is that? So what point is that on a sine curve, basically? So it's 4 times sine 45 would be my working. Does that make sense to everybody? Essentially, simple harmonic oscillators always follow sine curves. So if you're asked to work out the position and those things, then you basically are thinking about a sine curve and you're thinking about where on that sine curve you're going to find it. So if you multiply 4 by sine 45, I think you will have your speed there. There is also in the equation sheet, there is an equation for speed and position. So perhaps go back to that one as well. That's my advice to you. Okay, I'll have a little look. I'm fasting and finding it hard to concentrate on vision. Any advice? I can do it after I break, but break my fast. Sorry, but that means I stay up till about 3 a.m. Yeah, again, that's really hard. I would be entirely honest with you. If I was in your position, I would probably not be trying to worry too much about the revising and making my revision intense. I would be trying to make my revision kind of light touch stuff, just kind of memory work. And I wouldn't be working at night. I'll be honest with you. It's tricky. I would probably be doing more light touch kind of memory work. Maybe just sort of making sure that there's no chance I wasn't going to get the stated definition of type 1s. But I would not be stressing myself out. This is not the meaning, not the reason why you're having this period of time. So I would do that. Did that not work out then, Jonathan? Yeah. I'm not sure then. I think you're going to have to look into the equation sheet. I haven't got one on me just now, but there's something like V equals minus cos A minus cos omega t, something like that in the equation sheet, and I think that's where your answer will be. Okay, I'm going to ditch this stream now because I'm going to come back and do a GCSE one in a minute. Let's go ahead and do that now. This is metacognition. This is the second thing that you need to be doing this week. You need to make sure that this time you're spending is worth doing. Okay, you need to make sure that. Okay, so I would suggest you check, revise, check, and whatever you're doing, if you are revising and it's not working, then stop it. Go ahead and think about what worked for you in between the 2 mock exams you no doubt did at school. You probably did one in sort of January time and one in sort of March, April time. Okay, did it work? Did what you did in between those 2 mocks actually work? And if it didn't work, then don't just repeat the same kind of revision again. Change the way that you are working. So go find out that now. Go dig out those past papers. That'll be useful things to go through those and really think to yourself, oh yeah, I couldn't do that one then. Can I do that now? Useful things to really think about. How can you solve the problems? That's the reason we do past paper questions. It's not to memorize the answers. It is not to know how to solve those questions. It's to know how to solve the problems they're going to set you. And the problems won't be all that different to the real thing in the real exam. All right, thanks very much, and I will see you all tomorrow when I come back with a third. I have no idea how I'm going to fit it in tomorrow, but I will fit it in tomorrow. A third of 4 things that you need to be doing to get your A star or get your own top grade this week to make sure you give yourself the best chance of getting that.